Twin suns burned high above the dusty sky of Korath, turning the air thick and golden. The market below was alive with noise, with shouts of traders and cries of slaves, with the clang of metal cages that smelled of rust and sweat. Alien buyers walked between the cages, their reptilian eyes cold, their claws clicking against glass tablets as they made offers. And in one of those cages, standing tall though her wrists were bound, was Captain Lira Vance. She looked calm, almost too calm for someone who was supposed to be a captive. Around her, the other slaves kept their heads bowed, playing their roles well. They were soldiers of the Terran Recon Unit, trained to act, to wait, to strike at the right time, but to the alien guards, they looked like defeated humans ready to be sold. The guards laughed as they walked past, tapping the bars. Earthlings, one spat. Soft bones and soft hearts, good for mining and nothing else. Lira didn't reply. Her mind was focused on the small vibration in her right ear, a coded signal from her earpiece hidden under a layer of fake dirt. It pulsed in a rhythm only her team would recognize. They were checking in one by one, confirming that every agent was in position to anyone else. She was just a tired woman with pale scars and dirt on her face, but her blue eyes held something dangerous, a plan. The alien auctioneer, tall and dressed in purple silk, climbed onto the wooden stage. Today, he shouted in a voice amplified by speakers. We sell the last of the Terran stock, rare and strong. Buy them before they vanish forever. The crowd roared, flashing their credit chips. Lira studied them quietly, memorizing every detail. She knew their weapons, their armor, even the layout of the guards' movement. Everything had to be perfect, one mistake, and the entire team would die before extraction. A guard shoved her forward. Move, human! She stumbled slightly, letting herself appear weak. He laughed, turning his back. If only he knew she could break his neck faster than he could blink. But this wasn't the moment, not yet. Across the aisle, she caught sight of Sergeant Hale. His face was smeared with fake bruises, but his eyes met hers. A tiny nod passed between them, the signal for readiness. They were almost there underneath the auction stage. Buried beneath the wooden boards was a pulse detonator. It was wired to the market's main shield generator, the same field that kept them trapped. Once it went off, the shields would fall, and the real battle would begin. Lira turned her gaze to the sky, where faint trails of smoke marked the flight of alien patrol drones. She whispered so softly that only her mic could hear. Team 2, status? A voice answered through the static. Explosives planted, ma'am. 2 minutes till ready, she exhaled slowly. The alien next to her, a tall creature with horns, smirked. Scared, little one? She looked up at him and smiled faintly. Not scared, she said. Just waiting. The alien frowned, confused, but before he could question her, the auctioneer raised his hammer. Let the bidding begin, he announced. One by one, aliens shouted offers, arguing over the human female commander. Each bid was another second closer to detonation. Lyra's heart beat steady, 1, 2, 3 in her mind. She counted down the same way she always did during combat. 30 seconds left then from her earpiece. A soft voice whispered, Phase 1 complete. Captain? She straightened slightly, pulling her hands against the fake restraints. They were magnetic cuffs, real to the eye, but weak under the pulse of her hidden implant. She flexed her wrist, feeling the lock disengage with a faint click. Copy that, she whispered. Stand by for my mark. Around the market, her soldiers did the same, silently freeing themselves while the aliens laughed. The air felt heavier, charged with something the buyers didn't sense. Human intent, a storm about to break. The auctioneer slammed his hammer down. Sold! He shouted. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Credits transferred instantly. The winning bidder, a massive, armored alien, stepped forward. Grinning at Lira, he reached for her chain, unaware that his empire had just sealed its fate. Lira tilted her head slightly, her lips curving into a calm smile. She whispered under her breath, Showtime. A faint blue light blinked behind her collar. Unseen by alien eyes and miles above the city, a Terran dropship received her signal. Activating a stealth descent toward Korath, the rescue mission was in motion. The aliens thought they were selling slaves, but what they were really doing was hosting an invasion. The crowd continued cheering. Clueless, Lira stood in silence, eyes fixed on the horizon where the first glimmer of the human ship would soon appear. And in that moment, for the first time since her capture, she allowed herself a quiet laugh. They think we're slaves, she whispered. Good. Let's show them what a rescue mission looks like. Smoke drifted through the market ruins as the chaos settled, but beneath the noise, a silent current of communication flowed. Captain Lira Vance stood in the shadow of a collapsed cage, pretending to be dazed, while her eyes flicked between movement and timing. Every step, every breath, every signal mattered now. The alien traders were shouting, trying to repair the power conduits that had glitched for a few seconds. Unaware that those glitches had been deliberate, the humans had planned this months ago, planting codes inside the trade network. Now those codes pulsed quietly through the alien systems, bending security cameras, blocking scanners, and opening secret lines for human voices. Team 2, Lira whispered under her breath, her lips barely moving. Report. A faint voice crackled back through her comm implant. Explosives planted under the south gate. We're disguised as laborers. No suspicion yet. Lyra's gaze swept across the market until she spotted Hale and his partner dragging fake cargo boxes. Their uniforms looked dirty and real enough to fool anyone. They gave her the smallest nod as they passed. The Whisper network was alive again, silent but unstoppable. In another corner, a group of alien guards were arguing over lost profit. Humans are fragile, one hissed. Half of them won't even survive transport. Another grunted, doesn't matter. We sell, we move on. The commander wants credits, not excuses. Lira kept her expression blank. But inside, her pulse ticked with anger. She reminded herself why she was here. Not for vengeance, but for rescue. Hundreds of captured beings waited beyond this market, hidden in the old slave docks under the city. Her mission wasn't just to free her team. It was to end this entire operation. Phase 2 begins in 2 minutes, Hale's voice murmured through her earpiece. Lira nodded to herself, pretending to scratch her neck, her fingers brushing the tiny activation switch beneath her collar. That single button could release a coded pulse across the network, one that would synchronize every team's move, but she needed everyone in place first. Across the bazaar, a figure moved, Corporal Dean, a young comms specialist. She was pushing a hover cart filled with scrap metal, blending into the crowd. Lira noticed her hesitation and spoke softly through the mic. Steady, Dean. You're doing fine. Just like training. The girl exhaled, steadying herself. Yes, damn. Beneath the metal in her cart was the second detonator, disguised as a coolant cell. One wrong step, and the entire thing would blow too early. But she reached her spot perfectly. Right below the main watchtower, Lira adjusted her chains, pretending to wince as the guard walked by. The alien stopped, smirking. You still alive, human? I thought the heat would kill you. She met his gaze, calm as ever. You'd be surprised what humans can survive. He laughed and walked away. She didn't move until he was gone, then pressed her wrist gently. One soft tap. The signal traveled through the Whisper network, invisible and silent. A wave of short pulses flickered through every communicator, and across the market 20 hidden Terran soldiers braced. The countdown began. 60 seconds, Dean whispered through the channel. Southgate ready? West tunnel ready, Hale added. Roof snipers in position, came another voice. Lira looked up to the far end of the market, where the alien auctioneer still barked prices to a half-distracted crowd. He had no idea that his own communication tower was about to become the epicenter of a storm. 30 seconds, a trader passed too close to Lira, sniffing. Strange smell here, smoke. Lira forced a weak cough, waving him off. The smoke wasn't from the market. It was from fuse charges already burning underground. 10 seconds, the Whisper network went completely silent. Even the air felt different, tense, heavy, like the moment before a thunderclap. Then came the voice of Sergeant Hale, quiet and certain. Captain, on your mark. Lira raised her head, the faintest smile touching her lips. Her chains clicked softly as she whispered one word. Now, the ground shook. Explosions erupted beneath the market floor. Swallowing the stage in a roar of flame and dust, aliens screamed, diving for cover as lights shattered and towers collapsed. Through the chaos, the slaves tore off their fake restraints, pulling hidden rifles from the debris. Lira sprinted through the smoke, her voice calm over comms. Alpha team, extract the civilians first. Beta, take out the generators, go. Hale's deep voice came through the static. Copy that, Captain. Moving. The Whisper network exploded into controlled coordination. Every voice focused, every move precise within seconds. What had been a slave market turned into a battlefield. Lira ducked behind a fallen pillar as blaster fire tore through the air. Her calm never wavered. This wasn't chaos. This was a rescue mission. and it was going exactly to plan. The explosion rolled through the market like a living thing, shaking the metal stalls and tearing apart the silence of centuries. For one wild heartbeat, the entire bazaar froze. Then everything broke loose. Flames burst from the auction platform, tearing through banners and scattering the crowd of alien buyers. The sky itself seemed to shudder as debris flew upward, painting the air with ash and sparks. Captain Lira Vance pushed through the smoke. Her cuffs broken, her voice steady. "Stay in formation," she ordered through the comm. "Protect the civilians first." Her team, disguised moments ago as chained humans, now moved like soldiers again, weapons drawn, eyes alert, every motion clean and practiced. They had trained for this moment for weeks, an operation disguised as a sale. Now it was time to turn the alien slave market into a battlefield of liberation. Aliens stumbled through the smoke, coughing and panicked. Some grabbed their credits, others their weapons, but none understood what had happened. To them, it was a freak accident, a disaster, until they saw the humans moving with purpose. Then realization struck. "This isn't a rebellion." One shouted, "It's a raid." Lira didn't waste time. She ducked behind a collapsed cage, raised her plasma pistol, and fired 3 precise shots. A guard fell. Another tried to draw his blaster but didn't get the chance. "Sniper's status," she said calmly. "North Tower's secure," came the reply. "We're covering your flank." Through the haze, Sergeant Hale appeared, limping but grinning. "Beautiful chaos, Captain," he said, tossing her a new rifle. Lira caught it midair. "Focus, Sergeant, we're not done." He nodded, eyes scanning the battlefield. "The gates?" "Still sealed," she replied. "We open them in 2 minutes." The ground trembled again as one of the pulse bombs detonated beneath the slave pens. Metal bars melted away like wax, freeing a dozen alien prisoners from different species. Tiny winged creatures fluttered upward, confused and terrified. A tall, silver-skinned being fell to his knees, whispering something in his language. A prayer. Or maybe a word for freedom. Lira knelt beside him, pressing a small beacon into his palm. "Follow the green light," she said softly. "It'll take you to the evac zone." Above them, alien gunships began to descend. The Empire's soldiers were fast, efficient, and furious. Columns of armored troops dropped into the market from hovering transports. "Here comes the welcoming party," Hale muttered. Lira smirked. "Good. I hate leaving without saying hello." She tapped her wrist, sending another coded pulse. Far beyond the city, in the shadow of a canyon, hidden Terran drones came online, their engines roaring. They shot into the air, invisible to scanners. Heading straight for Korath's capital district, Lira and her team moved quickly, sweeping through the ruined market. Covering every corner, their bullets were low-powered, meant to disable, not kill. This mission wasn't about revenge, it was about rescue and message. They wanted the galaxy to see what humans could do when pushed too far. The air filled with firelight and chaos. A group of alien mercenaries rushed toward Lira. Shouting in their native tongue, she spun, firing 2 rounds into the sand at their feet. Warning shots. "Back away," she said coldly. "No one has to die today." But one didn't listen, lunging forward with a blade. Lira sidestepped and struck him with the rifle's butt, sending him crashing into the dust. Hale grinned. "Still got it, Captain?" She didn't smile back. "Save the jokes for after we're off this planet." Then came a voice over the comm, sharp and urgent. "Captain, the shield generator's still active. We can't extract." Lira looked toward the tower beyond the smoke. The core glowed bright red. The pulse detonator had damaged it, but not destroyed it without bringing that shield down. They'd all be trapped. She took a deep breath. "Understood," she said. "I'm heading there myself." "Negative," Hale shouted. "That's suicide, half the garrison stationed there." She met his eyes, firm and calm. "Then I'll move fast," before he could argue. She was already sprinting through the smoke, dodging laser fire and leaping over wreckage. Her boots hit the metal steps of the tower, the sound ringing above the chaos below her. The market burned like a storm of color and noise. Humans helping aliens, soldiers carrying wounded strangers, all working side by side. The same crowd that had come to buy slaves was now watching those slaves tear down their entire system. Reaching the top platform, Lira found the main control unit sparking and half destroyed. A wounded alien engineer tried to crawl away. She aimed her pistol but hesitated, then holstered it. "Run," she said. He didn't need to be told twice. She turned the rifle upside down, using the stock to smash the control core. Electric light exploded in a shower of blue sparks. The shield flickered once, twice, then collapsed. Every Terran soldier heard the sound, the soft hum of freedom. "Shields are down," Lira announced, breathless but smiling. "Prepare for extraction." As her team began moving survivors toward the rendezvous point, the flames around them reflected in her visor. The humans had come pretending to be slaves. Now they were walking out as heroes. And for the first time in Korath's history, the Empire's greatest market was burning for the right reason: freedom. The fires of Korath burned behind her, but Captain Lira Vance didn't slow down. Her boots pounded against the metal walkway as she led the freed captives toward the outer gates. The sky above was no longer gold, it was a storm of smoke and flame, filled with the glow of plasma bolts and tracer rounds. "Keep moving," she shouted, waving a group of trembling alien refugees forward. They obeyed her voice instantly, trusting the human who had turned chains into freedom. But deep beneath the chaos, something shifted. A strange stillness rolled through the battlefield, a silence that didn't belong. Then a sound came, a deep metallic hum echoing through the ruined market. Sergeant Hale froze, looking toward the horizon. "Captain, you hear that?" Lira stopped, her eyes narrowing. It wasn't an engine, it was a signal, and then she saw him, stepping through the smoke like a figure carved from shadow and armor. Commander Zareth, the alien warlord of Korath. He was tall, plated in obsidian armor that reflected the firelight, his face hidden behind a mask carved with jagged symbols. Behind him marched soldiers with glowing rifles, each one locked into perfect formation. He wasn't retreating, he'd been waiting. "Humans," Zareth said, his voice low and cold through a translator implant. "You've made a very costly mistake." Lira raised her weapon. "So have you." He chuckled softly, a sound that made the air feel colder. "Do you really think I didn't know who you were, Captain Vance? I've been watching since your ship entered orbit." Lyra's stomach twisted. Her infiltration had been compromised from the start. The auction, the setup, the success of the explosion. It had all been part of his plan. Around her, energy barriers flickered to life. Trapping her team inside a shimmering dome, the air crackled with electric blue light. Hale slammed his fist against the barrier. "It's a containment field. He's sealing us in." Zareth walked closer, his boots clicking slowly. "You humans are clever, but predictable. Always running toward danger with the illusion of control." He lifted a hand, and the field pulsed, throwing sparks inside it. The freed prisoners screamed as the air grew hot and thin. Lira clenched her jaw, forcing her fear down. This wasn't over, it never was. She turned her wrist slightly, activating her private comlink. "Valkyrie Command," she whispered. "This is Vance, Plan B. Now." For a heartbeat, there was only static. Then a faint reply came through. "Confirmed, Captain. Stealth ship on approach. ETA 60 seconds. Zareth's eyes glowed behind his mask. "Calling for help?" He mocked. Lira looked up at him, steady, calm. "Not help," she said. "Back up." He tilted his head, amused. "You think one ship will change your fate?" Lira smiled faintly. "It's not one ship. It's what's inside it." And then the sky split open. A piercing blue light sliced through the smoke as a Terran stealth dropship decloaked midair. Engines roaring, the sound was thunder-made metal. Zareth took a step back, raising his arm. "Fire on that ship!" Missiles streaked upward, slamming into the air where the dropship had been, only to explode harmlessly against holographic decoys. The real ship descended lower, spinning to reveal open ramps lined with armed soldiers in dark armor. Lyra's voice rang through the comm. "Team Alpha now." Inside the dome, hidden transmitters in each human suit began to pulse. The containment field flickered, sparked, then collapsed entirely. "Go!" Lira yelled, her team rushed out, guns blazing, covering the refugees as they ran toward the waiting dropship. Zareth snarled, drawing a long plasma blade from his back. He leapt down from the platform, landing hard, cracking the ground beneath his feet. Lira turned to face him, eyes unblinking. "Your empire dies today," she said. "You talk too much," he hissed, lunging. Their blades met in a burst of sparks. She ducked under his swing and fired a close-range pulse round into his armor, but it only dented it. Zareth grabbed her arm, twisting hard, but she countered with a sharp knee strike. Breaking free, the battle between them was fast, brutal. A clash of two worlds, discipline versus domination. Hale joined in, firing rounds to force Zareth back. But the warlord deflected them easily. Lira knew she couldn't win by strength, only by timing. "Pilot," she gasped into her comm. Mark target on my position. Confirmed, came the calm reply. Zareth raised his blade again, but this time Lira didn't block. She dove sideways as a laser blast from orbit struck the ground where he stood. The explosion hurled him backward into the rubble. His armor smoking, the Terran dropship hovered overhead. Hale grabbed Lyra's shoulder. We're clear. Everyone's in. Lira looked toward the flames. Breathing hard, Zareth was gone, vanished into the smoke. This isn't over, she whispered. Then she climbed aboard the dropship. As it lifted into the black sky, Korath burned beneath them. The Empire had walked them into a trap, but the humans had turned that trap into a message. No chain could hold them. The Terran dropship roared through the upper atmosphere of Korath, its hull glowing from re-entry heat inside. The air buzzed with tension and adrenaline. Freed captives huddled in the back seats, trembling, their wide alien eyes reflecting the flicker of red warning lights. Captain Lira Vance stood near the cockpit, gripping the railing as the ship jolted violently. Outside, plasma streaks chased them across the burning sky. Shields down to 20%, shouted the pilot, voice crackling through the intercom. Can't shake pursuit. 3 enemy interceptors on our tail. Lira glanced through the viewport, seeing the alien gunships cutting through the smoke. Bright blue trails marked every missile fired toward them. Keep us steady, she ordered, and don't waste countermeasures yet. Sergeant Hale stumbled up beside her, holding his bleeding shoulder. Tell me you have a plan. Captain? Lira smirked faintly despite the chaos. When don't I? He raised an eyebrow. That's what worries me. The dropship banked hard left, flames licking the edges of the window. Lira pressed her wrist pad, opening the tactical display on the wall. A red hologram of Korath filled the cabin, showing their flight path, pursuit vector, and orbital exit route. See this canyon ridge? She said, pointing to a narrow chasm cutting through the desert below. The pilot nodded. That's suicide, ma'am. Too tight for a ship this size. Lira smiled. Perfect, they'll think so too. Below them, the world was a wasteland of glass and ash. The once mighty capital now glowed with orange cracks where the fires still raged. Lira stared down, silent for a moment. So much death, so much cruelty. And still, somewhere out there, Commander Zareth lived, watching, waiting. He'd escaped the blast. She could feel it. The thought only hardened her resolve. All right, she said suddenly. Drop altitude now. The pilot cursed under his breath, but obeyed. The dropship nosedived, engines screaming as it cut through clouds of burning debris. The freed captives cried out in panic, clutching their seats. Lira turned to them, voice calm and clear. You're safe now, understand? No one gets left behind. Not on my ship. Her voice carried a strength that steadied everyone instantly. Even the aliens who didn't understand her words could feel the conviction behind them. The ship leveled out just above the canyon floor. Rocks flew past so close they could hear them scrape the hull. Enemy interceptors followed, firing burst after burst. Evasive pattern Delta 9, Lira shouted. The pilot grinned. You're lucky I practiced that move. He twisted the ship sharply, scraping one wing against the canyon wall. The shock wave from a nearby missile struck the rear, sending sparks across the cabin. Panels burst open, alarms blared. Rear thrusters offline, yelled the co-pilot. Hale braced against the wall. We can't keep taking hits like this. Then let's give them something to choke on, Lira replied. She tapped her wrist again, activating a command code underneath the ship. Hidden compartments slid open, releasing small black spheres into the air. Within seconds, they exploded into clouds of ion dust. The pursuing gunships flew straight through it. Every system they had blinked and died, engines cut, targeting failed, and 3 alien interceptors spiraled out of control, crashing into the canyon walls. Direct hit, the pilot shouted, punching the console. That's how humans say goodbye. The cabin erupted in brief cheers. Lira didn't smile. She was already checking the radar. Don't celebrate yet, she said softly. Zareth doesn't give up that easy. As if summoned by her words, a massive shadow appeared on the scanner. A battlecruiser, 3 times the size of their ship, emerging from orbit. Its cannons glowed with charging plasma, ready to fire. The freed aliens gasped in terror as the enormous vessel blocked out the sun. Hale looked at Lira, pale. What now, Captain? She didn't hesitate. Now we fight gravity with madness. She sprinted to the cockpit and took manual control. Ma'am, you can't, the pilot started. Watch me, she said, pulling the flight stick hard forward. The dropship dove again, but this time, It flipped nose first toward the sand plains. The battlecruiser adjusted its aim, following their descent. "Missiles incoming!" shouted Hale. Lyra's voice stayed calm, almost cold. "Hold steady." At the last possible moment, she yanked the controls up. The ship's wings scraped the desert floor, blasting waves of dust into the air. The missiles struck seconds later, hitting the ground instead, detonating a massive dust storm that blinded the cruiser's sensors. They shot upward through the cloud, engines roaring straight into open sky. The ship broke through the atmosphere in a blaze of red light. Everyone on board screamed, not in fear but in triumph. "Welcome to orbit," Lira said quietly, wiping soot from her cheek. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, cold and peaceful. The worst was behind them, or so they thought, because far below, hidden beneath the smoke of the dying planet, a faint blue light flickered among the ruins. Zareth's armor powered back on, his eyes glowing with fury. "This isn't over, human," he whispered to the burning sky, and above him, the Terran dropship carried the first taste of rebellion out into the stars. A storm was coming, and Lira Vance had just lit the match. The stars outside the viewport shimmered like cold fire, but inside the Terran dropship the air was thick with pain, smoke, and the smell of burnt metal. Captain Lira Vance stood in the middle of the chaos. Her armor scorched, her breath ragged but her mind sharp as ever. "The mission wasn't over, not yet, status," she shouted over the alarms. "Engine 2's fried," yelled the co-pilot. "We've got stabilizers offline and minimal thrust. If we don't reroute soon, we'll drop right back into orbit." Sergeant Hale leaned against the wall, blood running down his arm. "We're alive." "That's the good part," he muttered. "Barely." Lira moved through the cabin, helping wounded soldiers and frightened captives. Dozens of alien refugees, children, minors, and slaves from a dozen worlds, sat trembling under emergency lights. She knelt beside a small reptilian child whose scales were singed from the explosion. "Hey," she said gently, offering her water flask. "You're safe now, all right? You made it out?" The child blinked at her, confused by the human words, but took the flask anyway. Lira smiled faintly, then stood and looked to Hale. "Get the medkits open. I want everyone patched before we hit orbit." The dropship rattled violently, throwing everyone sideways. "Brace!" the pilot shouted. "We've got incoming, tracking 2 missiles from the cruiser." The hull screamed as metal groaned under pressure. Lira sprinted to the front. "Countermeasures ready?" "Already spent them." She gritted her teeth. "Then we improvise." She yanked open the engineering panel and ripped a wire from the reactor line, sparks flying. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" Hale yelled. "Buying us a miracle," she said, twisting the wire into a manual override port. The ship's lights flickered, and suddenly, an energy surge pulsed through the rear thrusters. The dropship lurched forward like a cannonball. The missiles screamed past, missing by inches and detonating harmlessly behind them. Cheers erupted through the cabin, but Lira didn't join. Her hands were shaking from the electric shock that crawled up her arm. "It burned. But she didn't stop, pilot," she said hoarsely. "Get us to the rendezvous coordinates." "Dark side of the moon?" He nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Copy that." As the stars turned black and the planet's burning glow fell away behind them, silence settled for the first time since the attack. But in that silence, the true weight of what they'd done began to sink in. Freedom, she realized, always came with a price. Hale sat beside her near the bulkhead, clutching his bandaged shoulder. "Half the team's gone," he said quietly. Lira didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the stars. "They knew the risk," she finally said. "Every one of them did." Hale nodded, then gave a small, tired grin. "They'd say it was worth it." Lira turned to him, her expression softening. "You think so?" He looked back toward the alien refugees sleeping across the deck. "Yeah. Look at them, Captain. They're breathing free air for the first time in their lives." The ship jolted as they entered the shadow side of the moon. From here the stars looked closer, sharper, as if the galaxy itself was watching. Lira leaned against the viewport, her reflection half lit by the glow of passing satellites. "Command will say this was too costly," she murmured. "They'll say we lost too much." Hale smiled faintly. "Then they don't understand the kind of fight we're in." A faint beep interrupted them. The long-range comm coming online. Lira pressed the receiver. "Valkyrie Command, this is Recon Team 7. Requesting emergency docking and med support." Static answered first. Then a familiar voice filled the cabin. "Copy that, Captain Vance. Hang tight, we're tracking you now." Relief flickered through the ship like a soft wind. Some of the wounded began to relax. Others simply cried quietly. Lira looked at them all, the humans, the freed aliens. The soldiers who had given everything, and felt something stir in her chest, not pride, not yet. But something stronger, something alive. "Captain," Hale said softly, "you should rest." She shook her head, smiling weakly. After we dock, through the viewport, the Terran flagship Valkyrie came into view, its long, silver hull glowing softly under the moonlight. It looked peaceful, majestic, untouchable. For the first time since landing on Korath, she allowed herself to exhale. They'd made it, but far below on the burning planet, Commander Zareth stood on the ruins of the market. His armor cracked, but his fury unbroken. He looked up into the night sky, watching the faint trail of the escaping dropship. "Let them run," he growled behind him. His soldiers bowed as the wind carried the ashes of his empire away. "We'll rebuild," he whispered, "and next time, they won't be the ones writing history." Up above, Lira placed a hand on the cold glass of the viewport, her voice quiet but steady. "He'll come for us," Hale said behind her. "I know," she replied, "and when he does, he'll learn something he never understood." "What's that?" Hale asked. She turned, her eyes bright with fire. "That humans don't fight for power," she said. "We fight for each other." And in the silence of the stars, the dropship carried the wounded and the free toward home. Every scar, every loss, every soul saved became part of the same unspoken promise. Freedom might cost everything, but it was worth the price. The Valkyrie drifted through the darkness of space, its engines silent. Its hull still scarred from battle inside. The survivors rested, some sleeping, some whispering prayers, and some simply staring at the stars as if seeing them for the first time. Captain Lira Vance stood on the bridge alone except for the hum of the ship's control panels. Beyond the viewport, Korath's burning planet turned slowly. A dying ember fading into shadow. "Transmission link established," said the ship's AI. Its voice calm and distant, Lira nodded. "Patch me through to command." A blue hologram flickered to life before her, an admiral with cold eyes and a uniform too clean for war. "Captain Vance," he said, "we received your distress beacon. The council is reviewing your report." "Reviewing?" she echoed. "We freed over 200 captives and shut down an interstellar slave market, Admiral." "That's not a review, that's a victory." The hologram shifted uncomfortably. "At the cost of 23 soldiers, 1 stealth ship, and several violations of neutrality treaties." Lira stared at him, the fire in her eyes rising. "Sir, if neutrality means ignoring people in chains, then maybe it's time we stop being neutral." The Admiral didn't reply. The hologram faded out, leaving her alone again. She looked down at her hands, still trembling from exhaustion. Still streaked with dust and ash, she thought of Hale, still in the med bay, of Dine who had lost her voice to smoke, and of the faces of those who hadn't made it back. Her jaw tightened. They hadn't died for paperwork. They died for a message, AI, she said quietly. "Open a public frequency, wideband relay, Captain, that will transmit to all major networks within range," the AI warned. "I know," she replied. "Do it." The console lights dimmed, and a soft recording tone began. Lira stood before the ship's symbol, the Terran insignia scorched and faded, and spoke. "This is Captain Lira Vance of the Terran Recon Corps." Her voice was steady, clear. "Yesterday, the people of Korath watched humans sold like cargo. They laughed at us. They thought we were weak, broken, conquered." She paused, her gaze hardening. "But today, the fires you see burning on that world aren't from our defeat. They're from their empire collapsing." Around the ship, the crew began to gather quietly, listening. "This wasn't just a rescue mission," she continued. "It was a promise. To every slave, every refugee, every world that's ever been told they're less than free." She leaned closer to the mic, her tone fierce. "We're not property. We're not resources. We are human, and when one of us is chained, none of us are free." Her words spread across the void, bouncing from relay to relay, reaching ships, colonies, even alien outposts that had never heard a human voice before. In the mining stations of Vega, dock workers stopped to listen. On the edge of Andros Prime, alien traders paused mid-transaction as the message reached their comms. Even within Zareth's broken fortress, the surviving soldiers of Korath heard it. And for the first time, they felt something unfamiliar. Respect on the Valkyrie's bridge. The crew stood in silence as Lira finished. If you hear this, she said, her voice softening, know this, we're coming. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as brothers and sisters who won't look away again. She lowered her hand. Ending the transmission, for a long moment no one spoke. Then Hale's voice came from behind her, weak but steady. Nice speech, Captain. Think anyone was listening? Lira turned, smiling faintly. Someone always is. He limped closer, resting his hand on the console beside her. What now? He asked. Lira looked back out at the stars, at the endless stretch of night waiting beyond. Now, she said quietly, we prepare, because that message wasn't just for them, it was for him. Zareth, Hale muttered. She nodded. He'll come for us. And when he does, the galaxy will see who breaks first. Outside the viewport, the dark void shimmered as the faint signal of her transmission rippled through space like a wave of light. Worlds would hear it. Some would ignore it. Others would rise because of it, but the spark had been lit, and no empire could stop a fire born from hope. Lira Vance stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes unblinking. She'd lost friends, bled on foreign soil, and buried part of her soul on that burning planet. But she had kept the one thing no one could take, her purpose. Set course for the outer colonies, she ordered. The pilot turned. Ma'am, orders from command were to— Forget command, she interrupted, her tone iron steady. We move where freedom needs us most. The stars stretched before them, endless and waiting, as the Valkyrie's engines roared to life. The galaxy listened, and somewhere deep in the dark, far beyond any broadcast signal, Commander Zareth opened his eyes and smiled. So, he whispered, the war has begun. And with that, the human rescue that started as an act of defiance had become something greater, a movement, a legend, a message to the stars, that freedom always finds a voice, even in the silence of space.